Hello, and thank you for joining California Symphony at our first ever UnGala. At California Symphony, we have a tradition of doing things a little bit differently here, and I would say tonight is another prime example of just that. So as part of our UnGala, we invite you to be comfortable, take a seat or stand, enjoy the music however you wish, and if you're so moved, you're welcome to make a donation. So I'm going to turn things over to Donato so he can tell you a little bit more about what to expect this evening, but know that we are so thankful that you're here, and this is just one more way for us to show that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Lisa. Like Lisa said, we have been doing things a little differently, and some would say a lot differently, for quite a few years now. And it's been so heartwarming to see our audiences grow really exponentially in the last few years, and to really join us on this journey, this exciting journey that we've decided to take. And what I love about the California Symphony is that this journey is not being taken by other orchestras anywhere else. And we are connecting to you and to the rest of the community in a way that I've always dreamed an orchestra could and should communicate and perform and engage. What you're going to hear tonight are two incredible artists play two extraordinary pieces. You'll hear Stephen Zielinski, who is our acting principal clarinet, who is also our second clarinet player. He does both. He's going to play this incredible, short, jazzy piece for solo clarinet by Donald Martino, a wonderful composer, East Coast composer that both Stephen and I know and knew very well even when we were in school together in the Manhattan School of Music. And of course, that's followed by the most famous solo clarinet intro to the great Rhapsody in Blue. Now, what you would have heard at our gala that we would have done in person on June 13th today, you would have seen the great the original jazz band version of the Rhapsody in Blue by George Gershwin. But you're going to see, and actually you don't really get a chance to see this too often, George Gershwin created a piano solo version of Rhapsody in Blue. But we're doing something a little different in that Stephen is still playing the opening solo clarinet line. And what you'll hear in the interview later was how we stitched that all together through a technology that we're all learning. You're not the only ones that are learning how to do a Zoom meeting and YouTube Live and Facebook Live. We're all in this boat together. Throwing this together in the way that we did is exciting, and it's sort of in a way creates the same sort of adrenaline rush that I feel whenever I walk out on stage. So that's a good thing, to keep that adrenaline going. We're so happy that you're at home enjoying this wonderful concert and still being part of the California Symphony family. It may seem we're all separated by technology, but it's all bringing us together.
Now, before the show really begins, I want to make sure not only that you're comfortable, right? We all have our slippers. I have socks. Either is fine. And a drink. Also, if you're on YouTube right now looking at this, there is a chat box that is available that we're going to be jumping in soon to say hello. So you're welcome to join us there. Get a beverage, get some ice cream, and I'm going to let the musicians take it away.
Whether you've been California Symphony patrons and donors since the very first concerts 34 years ago, or whether you have discovered us much more recently, you are welcome at the California Symphony. The idea of making California Symphony welcoming to everyone is a bold ambition and guiding principle. Informed by research and by your feedback, we've overhauled the concert experience. We've replaced jargon-filled program notes with meaningful histories that highlight the context of a piece and why it matters. You can clap when you like what you hear. Keep your phone on and on silent while the music plays. And for your comfort and enjoyment, you can bring wine and ice cream into the hall, enjoy a signature cocktail, and take selfies in the lobby. We've embraced unconventional approaches to promoting the music as a way to reach new audiences and make sure you feel welcome in the hall. Maybe your interest was piqued by attending the groundbreaking Fresh Look adult education classes with our amazing instructor Scott Foglesong. Or perhaps you learned a thing or two from our blog. Thanks to you and all the many ways you engage, participate, and share our collective story, audiences have doubled in the past 4 seasons. Subscriptions have increased by a whopping 26% last year, and performances have been added to meet rising demand. Thank you. Even as, together, we are proud of our work to grow audiences and demystify the symphony, the work doesn't stop there. As part of our collective commitment to addressing social change in our community, your support for the Sound Minds program enables students who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to learn an instrument and with it hone skills like focus, self-discipline, and teamwork. The benefits are already manifesting in better academic outcomes and brighter futures for these kids. Truly, together, we are changing lives with music. Affecting change is also about the music you hear in the hall. At California Symphony concerts, you will often find works by underrepresented groups alongside Beethoven and Mozart. And that's good news for the future of classical music. California Symphony's Young American Composer in Residence program is acclaimed as a model for residencies everywhere, and it's produced major talents like Pulitzer Prize winner Kevin Putz and Grammy winner Mason Bates. 4 years ago, we updated the selection process so composers' identities remain completely anonymous, therefore also obscuring gender and ethnic background details. And after 8 white male resident composers in a row, our 9th was a woman, Katherine Balch. And our 10th, Viet Cuong, is California Symphony's first non-white resident composer. California Symphony was the first orchestra in America to publish a commitment to diversity statement 3 years ago, and we are the first orchestra and still the only orchestra in America to launch a bilingual website to better serve our Hispanic audience. Together, we should feel proud of this progress in promoting diversity and emphasizing inclusion at the California Symphony and in our community. At the same time, we acknowledge that much remains still to be done, and we are committed to this important work. Looking ahead to the 2021 season, there is obviously uncertainty about when we will be able to enjoy concerts together again at the Leisure Center. However, one thing that's certain is that the music continues, and we will still find ways to share music and community and stay connected, just as we are doing now. Thank you for being a part of the California Symphony. If you believe in what we are collectively achieving together, please consider giving a donation or making a pledge in the comments box now. Every gift counts. Thank you for your support. You just heard me talking a little bit about this young composers program we're all so proud of. Now I want to give the floor to two people deeply connected to it. Here's our wonderful outgoing young American composer in residence, Katherine Balch, and incoming resident composer, Viet Cuong.
Hi, Viet. I am so excited to welcome you as the next California Symphony Young American Composer in Residence. How are you doing? Where are you right now?
Good, all things considered. I'm in DC right now doing a residency at a place called Dumbarton Oaks. And it's been good, despite everything in the world. So, yeah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm in Colorado. Actually, Robin Bollinger, who premiered my violin concerto last season, had a residency at Dumbarton Oaks right before you. So I wonder if you're even in the same kitchen.
I think this is like the apartment she had.
Well, I wanted to use this time to ask you about a little bit about your sort of journey as a composer writing orchestra music. I know you have a big history of that, and also what made you to decide to apply to the California Symphony residency.
Yeah, well, I grew up like as a band kid. I played percussion and clarinet, so I didn't really have that much experience with orchestra music growing up. But I remember like maybe halfway through grad school, I still hadn't really written like an orchestra piece yet. So I was like, I'm going to try and I'm going to apply to some things. And I was fortunate to have some opportunities then. And it's just been a thing that I love more and more each time I do it. And so when I saw that there was this residency where you could write 3 pieces, I was like, well, of course I should apply if I can. And I was really just interested in like being able to grow as a composer and get better at writing for orchestra, because it's like a thing, I'm sure you agree, where you can do all the score study in the world, but until you like actually write something and hear it, it's like hard to really learn without hands-on, experience.
Yeah, totally. I think you have to sort of write out your mistakes, and the residency is an opportunity to do that, like especially with the workshop period, because you can sort of, at least for me, what I sort of learned to do, I learned to like put the most dubious or questionable material in the workshop part and see how it sort of went, to get a sense of like how much rehearsal time that would take, what would that look like being put together. So yeah. Do you know, so your first piece is going to be a concert opener, I presume?
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas yet of what you're thinking of writing, or is that too far off in the horizon?
I have some ideas. I've recently kind of been interested in shepherd tones, which for anyone who's watching who doesn't know what that is, it's basically where something sounds like it's continually rising. And also you can do it in the reverse to make it descending. So it's basically just playing, it's like an oral optical illusion, basically. So I kind of want to write a piece that's like a shepherd tone extravaganza, where everything sounds like it's constantly going somewhere and like on a kind of constantly rising or something, which would be fun, just like to figure out the orchestration, how to make that work.
Do you have any questions or things for me as we sort of wrap up this little mini interview?
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering like how your experience was doing your outreach and workshops, like with the Sound Minds.
Well, I think the workshops at the orchestra are invaluable, and the Sound Minds program is wonderful. I would encourage you to bring your instrument, because I think those kids are so hungry for hands-on music making, and anything you can bring to demonstrate the sort of physical nature and kinesthetic energy surrounding music making is just a really exciting way to bring people into your world.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll have to brush up on playing the clarinet. Yeah. Do you have like a favorite memory from the past 3 years?
I think my favorite memory of the past 3 years was the second season, the violin concerto with Robin, and having that project come to life. I think one of the greatest things about the residency is after your first concert opener year, they sort of turn the artistic vision part to you and ask you, what projects are you dreaming of doing? And that's what I was able to do for the past 2, or for the final 2 concerts. Of course, the third is on ice. but that really started with Robin's concerto, and that was an extremely rewarding experience in collaboration, both with the orchestra and Donato and with my best friend. So
Yeah.
I would definitely encourage you to seek out those types of collaborations that I think are uniquely available to you because of the residency.
Oh yeah, I have some things I'm dreaming of doing
Awesome.
for the concerto. So it's great to know that you kind of got to have some input on like what happened and what you got to do.
Yeah, it's going to
Sounds
be great.
amazing.
I'm really, really excited to hear what you come up with. As you know, I'm a huge fan of your music. So, yeah, good luck.
Thanks. Thank you.
You just heard from the future of American classical music. Now here's some of our recent past. Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue is one of the most iconic pieces that America's ever produced, and its composer, George Gershwin, is really one of the most prominent composers America has also ever produced. So to talk about a little bit further is fresh look instructor and California Symphony program annotator and treasurer, Scott Foglesong.
What you're hearing is the very first recording of Rhapsody in Blue, made on June the 10th, 1924, with most of the original performers, including George Gershwin on piano, Paul Whiteman conducting his orchestra, and even clarinetist Ross Gorman, who suggested that wonderful bluesy slide at the beginning of the piece. George Gershwin's Broadway career was just getting underway when Paul Whiteman tapped him to contribute a work for an ambitious concert in New York's Aeolian Hall that aimed to clothe jazz in symphonic garb. The concert, held on February the 12th, 1924, was a near disaster. It was boring. It was pretentious. The pieces all sounded alike. The ventilation system was on the fritz. Rhapsody in Blue was second to last on the program, and it saved the day, despite being fundamentally unfinished. Gershwin hadn't even written out the piano solo part yet, and house arranger Ferde Grofé had provided the orchestration. Gershwin's lack of formal training meant that the Rhapsody was more a potpourri than a unified structure. But no matter, it brought down the house and has held a place of honor in American concert music ever since. Gershwin went on to a spectacular career on Broadway with shows such as Strike Up the Band, Of Thee I Sing, and Girl Crazy. He wrote more concert works and eventually a major opera, Porgy and Bess. But Rhapsody in Blue remains his best-known concert work, immediately approachable and instantly lovable, an embraceable, irreplaceable treasure of the jazz age.
Wow, Andy, that was such a wonderful performance. Congratulations.
Thanks, Donato. Thanks, Stephen.
And Stephen, I mean, we were talking earlier how this piano version, which is wonderful to hear, you can't even come close to creating that moment, the very beginning, on the piano. You just have to hear you hear nothing but the clarinet, right?
Yeah, it's really essential. You can't emulate it.
And it's funny because I think most people, when they think of the clarinet, just a casual observer of classical music, this is perhaps the most famous clarinet thing that people are aware of, right?
Yeah, that's why when we did that fundraiser a few months ago, I was looking for iconic clarinet solos, and that's the reason why I picked that one. As something everybody recognizes. It's actually something I've never performed in front of an audience, and this is my first pseudo audience for it. But I've played the excerpt many, many, many times.
And what's interesting is that, and while it is very clarinety, what is interesting to know is that it's actually quite a unique technique to learn that you really only have to learn for this excerpt, right?
Yeah, well, I try to keep my jazz chops up a little bit, but yeah, that slide to make it happen in a live performance is very scary, to say the least. The more flexible you make it, the less likely it is to actually happen. So you need to kind of walk a tightrope and find the middle ground that makes it sound good.
So I can't say that this is the first time this has ever been done. Who knows? May have been, may not. But it's certainly the first time the California Symphony will have heard a online melding of the clarinet solo, the beginning of the Rhapsody in Blue, with you, Andy. So just so people know what happened, Stephen, last weekend you recorded the solo in the room that we see you now, and then the solo was sent to you, Andy, and you're in Connecticut, yeah?
Yeah, I live in Massachusetts, and I went to a showroom in Connecticut to do the recording.
So so it was then the clarinet, the Stephen's solo was sent to you, and then how did you record over that? Tell us about that.
Well, I had a Bluetooth earphone in my left ear, and the camera was to the right, and I actually set up my phone video so that I could see Stephen, because in a concert with a conductor, as you slide up to that B flat and you get closer and closer, someone's got to make the decision that we're landing together on,
Right.
Have you ever played that game where you try to walk up the forearm and tell the person with their eyes closed when you've hit the elbow? And sometimes they say stop and they're here near the wrist or something. It can be like that. You can really second guess yourself. Are we at the B flat? And Stephen did it so brilliantly that you're like a microtone away from the B flat for a really long time, and then there's no conductor giving you that certain sense that this. But luckily, I found that Stephen did just the tiniest hitch with his elbow, a moment, just at that instant when he was like, okay, I'm there. Yeah. And so I would just sort of look at him, and when he did that elbow, I was like, thanks, Stephen.
Here we are, Stephen. You're in the Bay Area. Andy, you're in Massachusetts / Connecticut recording. Here I am, actually now in Las Vegas for my niece's wedding, and with the three of us are doing this Zoom meeting interview, talking about something that was recorded about a week ago, and talking about, here we are in today's world presenting this iconic piece of music to our audience, who will be seeing this all in their slippers, figuratively and realistically. How do you feel about that? Yes, it's nothing like the real thing. We all know that to be true. But I will just start off by saying I think this is really a great opportunity that the California Symphony is taking, that the three of us we're still wanting to reach out in any way we can to the people that love the music as much as much as we do. Let's say that. What do you guys think about the moment we're in now?
Stephen, any thoughts?
I say, whatever we can do to keep the spirit alive as much as possible is essential. I know for me, any excuse that I can find to collaborate with people or play, as challenging as it is, that isn't, in real life, I'm very willing to take it right now. So.
Do you all hear that? That saying, and I think I've heard it attributed to Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, that his mother would tell him when things were bad, she would say, always observe the heroes and look at the bright moments that are coming out of it. One of the, I've sort of, maybe you guys have experienced this too, it's sort of a 12-step progression over these last 3 months of realizing we couldn't perform for our friends, we couldn't go out and see our friends. But one of the steps along the way for me has been this silver lining of that this coronavirus has sort of really brought home for all of us just what beautifully social creatures we are as a species, and just how desperately even the people that fashion themselves introverts really do crave that contact, that reaching across the ether and somehow reaching each other. And so it's fascinating to me how we've used technology now, and I think there's been a steep learning curve. There's no question about that. We've all tried to learn quickly, but I think it's starting to yield some results where we really can kind of scratch that itch that's been, dying to be scratched, of just getting to reach each other, deep expressions, intimate expressions coming through the computer, and finding a way to make it come through.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more, Andrew. One of the things that I've come to realize is that the California Symphony and all of the people that through your duo with James Ennis, a fantastic violinist, and through your contact, Stephen, the people who you've performed with in the past, we really can't. We've never taken this for granted, but the folks who are our supporters, our donors, our people that show up to a concert here and there whenever they can, like you said, they really we all need this, whether it's to perform for them or for them to hear us, and they're finding any way possible to still support us, to still reach out if they've never been on a Zoom meeting before, if they've never been on YouTube Live, Facebook Live. They're finding a way to still connect with us and to support this art form, even though right now we all can't come together in the way we would love. And in close proximity, I still sense this incredible community. And it's every bit as alive as before. And in some ways, because we've had to learn, like you said, all this new technology, which is also a good thing to now feel comfortable with this. This desire and need to reach out it's just so much more appreciative and real. Yeah.
We're all starving for it.
Stephen, I wanted to talk about thank you, by the way. This was all sort of put together in a short time, very short time period. And I asked you, and I swear to you, it wasn't masochistic at all on my part, but I asked you to play a piece that you'd played for our California Symphony family during the Meet the Clarinet event that we had last season. By composer Donald Martino. And I thought, because you were playing a very famous clarinet solo, the most famous clarinet solo, it would be wonderful for you to play a not so famous but equally impressive and just out of this world piece for solo clarinet by Donald Martino. Can you share this piece, what this piece is about, and your connection with this piece?
Yeah, this piece is actually one of my favorites to perform from a virtuoso perspective. It's a great little jazzy virtuoso piece that Donald Martino composed in the, I think, mid-50s, 1954. He was obsessed with Benny Goodman, and who doesn't love a great jazzy clarinet? Now, jazz on clarinet requires a different mouthpiece, a different reed, a different setup. So it's a very different animal, but he wanted to bring those jazz elements to a more classical composition. And the piece itself is kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's meant to be like almost like a conservatory virtuoso challenge of his, clarinet rival. The composer himself was a clarinetist originally. This piece, I think, is a lot of fun. If you look at some of his other pieces, they're much more experimental and a little bit more out there. This one is, I think, much more playful, and it kind of sounds like a blues player improvising. But yeah, it's part of a larger work that follows a very traditional jazz 3-set piece. So the first one is a stomp. It was originally called Conservatory Stomp. And then the second movement of the work is blues. So it's kind of a little bit more mysterious, a little bit more introverted. And the last piece of the 3 pieces, so I've only played the first piece for us today, but the last piece is it's got this shuffle feel, and you can really see that, especially calling the first one Conservatory Stomp, that Benny Goodman influence. Like, he was really looking to Benny Goodman and trying to make something classical that borrowed a lot of jazz with it, which I think is really cool.
Well, it's a perfect segue. It ends up being a perfect segue into the Gershwin. Andrew, when was the last time you played the piano version of Rhapsody in Blue? Now, let's be clear for our audience that's watching this interview. The Rhapsody in Blue is a piece for piano and jazz band, which is the original version, or orchestra. And Andy and I have performed the jazz band version. In fact, I think that was the first time you'd ever done the jazz band version.
Yeah, and I was so grateful you had picked it. Yeah, because I played it with orchestra, and it works so great with the jazz band.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
But what's it like playing the solo piano version of Rhapsody in Blue?
Well, it's really tricky because there are places where with the jazz band or the orchestra, the piano will be playing one part while the piano will be playing while the brass are going. And then when it comes to that part in the solo version, he doesn't want to give any of it up. So he just says, well, we'll have the piano doing all of that at once. And you're trying to figure out where the 12th and 13th and 14th fingers are to make it happen. But it's really fun. It's just, the piano is a great imitative instrument, and it really stretches the bounds of how much you can imitate, because when you're sitting with a great jazz band and they're using plungers on the ends of trumpets and trombones and they're sliding and making it sound like people laughing and like taxis and sirens, it really pushes your limits to try to create that. And could I tell you one more thing that Gershwin said? I just think this is so fitting. So you know that he had to write this piece. He had already said he was not going to write it, and then everybody knows and then his brother read in the paper, oh, the premiere's coming up of the piece that you're writing, which he had said he wouldn't write. So then he had to really cram it. So he was on the train and he heard the clickety clack. He was interviewed later. He said, it was on the train with its steely rhythms, its rattlety bang, that is so often so stimulating to a composer. I frequently hear music in the very heart of the noise. And so sitting there, the whole piece came to him almost in a moment of inspiration. And I think this just touched me this morning to read this. I heard it as a sort of musical kaleidoscope of America, of our vast melting pot, of our unduplicated national pep, of our metropolitan madness. And that for him, that was all contained in that ride and what he was channeling in these themes. And God, it kind of choked me up to read that this morning.
Well, especially there, those are appropriate words. If ever there was a time today to think about how the sounds and feelings and experiences we have with one another can create out of a seemingly monotonous mechanical sound of a train, can inspire something so incredibly iconic and beautiful and really is part of our DNA now. Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. It's we can't, obviously we just can't take these things for granted anymore. And I think we're all realizing these little things. I know now every time that I go outside and go for a walk and outside of my San Francisco apartment, go to the grocery store, it's such a meaningful thing for me just to get outside and to walk to my grocery store. I mean, I can't say that I'll ever come up with anything as profound as Rhapsody in Blue, but I certainly feel that these moments all of the moments we're experiencing right now will inflect and tell our stories in the future in a very profound way. And again, I want to thank both of you for learning this technology in order to share these incredible pieces of music with the people that really, if it weren't for the donors and supporters and our California Symphony family, we wouldn't be sitting here right now doing this and sharing these great stories. So thank you both. And
thank you both, and thanks, as you say, to the Symphony audience and community. I'm always shocked when people audience members are sometimes surprised when they learn how much of an impact they make on us on stage, how much they're a part of the performance.
Equal part.
And we did a Zoom live concert last night for a series in Connecticut, and people were chatting. They were saying, "Oh, I love that piece that just went," and it was amazing how that started to almost give the same sense that we feel in an auditorium of that two-way street and the communication. And I know it's a little bit one step closer to being message in a bottle, throwing it, when we're on Zoom, but the connection is there, and we're so grateful to your community for being on the other end of the telephone line, as it were.
That's right, exactly. Well, thank you both, and we will be seeing both of you in person, I'm sure. Can't be soon enough. Let's just say that. Take care. Stay safe.
Take care. Great to see you both.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Be safe. Bye.